Hello, 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 our beautiful, beautiful friends. It's Hadia and Angela.
Hey,
Angel,
Angela. Hello.
welcome to our podcast, Hadia Loving, Loving with Hadia. HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. I invite you to go on there and sign up for your sessions. I support men and women people in co-creating a better life for yourself, getting the life that you want, a better and better life through dating, financing, finances, making more money, having better jobs, making better choices in your friendships, your dating life, your relationships, through self-loving, self-caring, self-nurturing, and action steps. Living life in the present moment, in action, in experiencing and allowing, having fun and joy. And Angela is also a shamanic healer extraordinaire, and her work is so beautiful. We're both coaches, we do different things, and you're welcome to work with both of us, or none of us, or one of us. You are free to choose, and I invite you to cultivate your village and reach out to a coach. Me, Angela, or both. Angela, share with us what you do.
Sure. Like you, I do coaching and I do a modality called biotuning using tuning forks in the field around the body to move energy of mind, of the physical system, and just to create, what can I say, harmony where chaos, which may be thought of as old stories, disharmonious beliefs, emotions, and again, physical symptoms, unwellness, disease on many different levels. It works with animals as well as with humans. I've been doing a little bit of that lately as well with some with some animal friends. You mentioned the shamanic work and also the coaching.
Yay. So today on this podcast, we're going to talk about grieving. Happy, my dog, is usually with me, and she's no longer with us in body, with me in spirit. Happy moved on to, I guess, doggy heaven. I don't know. I'm hoping there is such a thing. Can't prove anything. Wednesday, June 9th, around 3:45 p.m. And she died in my arms. That was my, I guess, my vision or intuition. Like, she's been dying for a few months. She's been sick for a while. And people shared with me that when she's ready and you're ready, you take her to the doctors and they will put her down. I'm like, no, that's not going to be Happy's experience. I kept checking in with her, and I always got that she's going to die in my arms. I just didn't know when. I wish I did. And I took her to the doctors a week before, and he said, they did the checkup and blood tests and stuff, and he said, let's just keep her comfortable until she's ready, and I'll help you. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. Let's just keep her comfortable. And she started eating. She was going back and forth. So Wednesday, June 9th, I was running. I was doing some stuff, and she wasn't feeling well, and I was holding her. I just didn't know she was going to die in a few hours. I wish I did. So what I got out of it, and I was holding her. So my thought was always like, I'd be holding Happy and helping her transition. I was holding her and comforting her. And at the same time, I was texting a vet trying to get her in to see this acupuncture herbalist vet. And then I put the phone down. I was with her and she was breathing hard, and she took her last breath, and I was like, Happy just died. And it was really sad, and I was devastated. And my first reaction to her taking her last breath was shock and numbness. I was like, what just happened? Like, I intellectually got it, but emotionally and physically, like, I just shut down. So I grabbed her. We were sitting in a beautiful space and it was peaceful. Grabbed her, got in the car. I wanted to get home and be with her. And then I pulled over, and then I just started crying on the sidewalk, holding her. And then I realized I wanted to isolate. And I was like, no, isolating is not a good thing. Because when we isolate, when we're grieving and we isolate, it takes us into depression. There's a beautiful thing that happens when we grieve with other people and invite people into our grieving space. So Happy and I, she was my dog, as some of you have seen her. She's in like actually all my videos until she died. We were together 95% of the time. She was never left alone. She had her babysitters. I know she's not a baby, but she's my baby. I don't have human children. She's my child. And I called her my little person. She acted like a human. She understood things. We would go to dinner and she had to sit on a chair. She was never, she did not like sitting on the floor. She always had to sit next to me. I mean, she slept on top of the pillow. She took most of the space. It was like she was the queen of the kingdom, definitely. She wasn't in charge, but she wasn't a princess. She was a queen. She was an evolved, mature, four-legged person. And we loved each other so much. And I feel she was with me for 6 years. She died when she was 11 human years, so 77, and a month and a half, I think, about a month. So, and I rescued her from a good home. When I met Happy, we just knew, like Happy and I knew we belonged together. And I did rescue her from a good home. Her previous mommy couldn't take care of her anymore because she started working a lot. She wasn't home very often. And she did right by her. I interviewed people to adopt her, and she took her time. And then when she met me, and Happy and I were like so already connected, she acted like my dog the first time I met her. And her previous mommy said, oh, Happy found her new mommy. And right away she started following me around. And I remember I lived close to the beach, 4 blocks. That's close. I took her down for a walk, and people were like, oh my God, your dog is so pretty. How long have you had? I'm like, today. And they're like, what? It seems like you've had her all of her life. So I had her for 6 years. I wish it was longer. I'm very sad that she passed away. And my experience with it is to learn to grieve and not go into depression. And I've been grieving. I cry every night. I find myself sad throughout the day, but I'm not going into depression. And I'm also choosing to live my best life. And my best life, not somebody else's. A lot of times people hear those things like, what is my best life? And most of us compare ourselves to superstars, movie stars, famous people, comedians, talk show hosts. That is not your best life. That's their best life. You know, my best life is different than anybody else's. For me, sometimes my best life is to get up. We have another dog, Cookie, and she's very different than Happy. They're very different. Each soul, 4-legged, a snake. They have no legs, so I don't know what to call them. You know, I have a little friend. She's 11. She's got 5 pets. One of them is a snake, and she loves all of them. She's got a bird, 2 dogs, a turtle. No, she told me she had 5 pets. Anyways, we love them, and they all have their own personalities. They all have their own expression and experience. And we connect to our 4-legged, to our, I don't even like calling them animals, to our babies, to our friends, to Happy wasn't my best friend. She was my child. She was my little girl, and I adored her. And we just connected in such a beautiful, loving, profound way. And she taught me to receive love, and that love is infinite. And the more I loved her, the more she received. And I thought there's a cap on loving, but there isn't really. So she taught me to just keep expanding and receiving and giving. It was just a beautiful expression. And then I've learned that I do miss her physical presence, but she is present. She's in my heart. I feel her in my heart. So I miss her in a way that she's physically not here, but I don't feel a void that she's not here. I feel that she is here. She is in my heart. She is with me. I don't know how to explain that. That's the best languaging I can put on it. And I do miss, kissing her and hugging her and taking her for walks and carrying her. And she was with me all the time. When I would go anywhere, she would sit next to me when I was driving. And the front seat was hers. My friends would sit and I'm like, what? You're making me sit in the back? I'm like, yeah, this is Happy's. This is Happy's chair. She sits in the
Dog is your co-pilot.
what? And a lot of times she would sit next to me between the door and like on the side because she was so little. So grieving, allowing myself to grieve, and at the same time choosing my best life and not isolating, because isolation freezes people up. It's important to grieve and let people in. Happy touched a lot of people's lives. A lot of people shared loving with her. She wasn't just kind of loving to me. She loved people. She loved playing with people and having fun. As long as I was around, standing there. And she brought so much loving and joy to so many people. And sometimes I used to see clients in person in my apartment. And when they would cry, she would go sit in their lap and comfort them. And I'd ask them, is this okay? They're like, yeah, this is actually nice. Sometimes she would lick their tears or lick their hands. And she was very, very sensitive and very kind and tuned in to what people needed. She was just a sweet, 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 gentle soul. And people would say that. Remember that her doctor's visit the last time, but every time he saw her, he's like, she's so loving, she's so sweet, she's so gentle. I'm like, yeah, she is. Like, she didn't complain. She was in a lot of pain, but she didn't complain, and it was just awesome. And then when she died, at the same time, even though I was devastated and sad, and I didn't know it was happening when it was happening, when she was breathing heavy, I wish I did. I wanted to be more attuned to her. And that's a learning. And I'm not using that to put myself down or abuse myself. It's important to learn for next time. And I haven't decided if I'm going to get another dog or not. We already have a dog, Cookie, and she's amazing. And I love her, but she's very different than Happy. So where was I going with that? Oh, so at the same time of missing and grieving, I felt relief because she was in pain. Like, I understood for the first time when people say, it's a good thing this person died because they've been suffering for a long time. Like, watching her suffer was extremely painful for me. It was really hard, and not knowing what to do. When loving someone so much and not knowing how to help them and feel helpless, it was challenging for me. It was hard. So when she died, I felt relieved on one hand, not that she died, that she's not anymore. And then on the other hand, I'm sad and I miss her. And her name is Happy, so I hear myself saying Happy a lot. I got her ashes yesterday, and yeah. So, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with that, but they're in a box sitting next to my bed on the nightstand. And so the value of grieving, allowing myself to grieve and keep my heart open, not shut my heart down, and not reject the loving that is present, in my life, which is through Brookie, our other dog, Cookie, and through my friends and family, and receiving support. Like people called me and they're like, I'm here for you, and talking to people about it, and also setting boundaries and not overwhelming myself with people's sympathies and condolences, because I had to check in with my capacity of receiving and getting quiet and expanding my quietness, and also choosing to be present more and more in my life and getting more and more quiet. And that's the learning for me. She left me with few gifts, and one of them was I need to be more attuned. I need to expand my intuition and be more quiet and more present so I don't miss important things. Because I knew she was hurting and I was trying to get her in to see a vet. But I think if I was quiet instead of trying to scramble, I would have noticed that she was dying and just was present with her completely instead of a little bit towards the end. So using everything for my learning, growth, and upliftment so I can do differently next time, not just with having the next dog in my life, because when we do something one way, we do it that way throughout our life, whatever we do. So grieving looks differently at different times. We all know there's the 5 stages. Not all of us, most of us do. There's the denial, there's the bargaining. I've done the denial, I've done the like I want her back. And there's the acceptance and it comes and goes. Sometimes I'm at peace about her not being with me, and sometimes I'm like I want her back, and sometimes I'm in denial about it. So grieving looks differently at different times, and it's never like done. It just looks different. And this is new. I mean, this just happened a week ago. Yeah. No, it'd be 2 weeks this Wednesday already. Yeah. Oh wow, time flies. So yeah, tomorrow will be, because today's Tuesday. So, and as some of you know, my father died when I was 2 years old, and grieving looks different at different times, and claiming to live my best life, honoring her life, is the best thing I can do for myself and for her. And that came to me in meditation, because I grieved my dad for years. And in my 30s, I was in meditation and I heard this voice inside of me say, the best gift you can give your father is to live your best life. Because I was feeling guilty. Part of grieving is feeling guilty that I'm still alive. A lot of us, when we lose someone we love and care about, we feel guilty that we're living. And people make us feel guilty because they tell us, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sad for you. So I want to tell people who are listening to this, don't tell someone I'm sorry, because it makes them feel bad. Say, I have compassion for you. You have my sympathies. You have my support. I'm here for you. Because none of us really know what the person is going through. And if the person is in the denial stage, they don't feel sorry. They're not feeling anything yet. Don't impose on them what you feel. Like I've avoided talking to few friends about Happy's passing because I knew they would make it about them. I have a friend that called me and she's like, oh my God, ah! She started, those people that do that. And they're making it about them. Like, don't make somebody's grief about them. And we don't only make people's grief about us, or even their joy. If somebody gets married or they get a new job or a promotion, there's always this 1 or 2 friends that are like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. Like, oh wow, calm down. If you're a person who makes things about you, you're emotionally immature. Look at that. If you're happy for someone, just tell them congratulations. If you feel with someone and their pain, just say, I'm here for you. I have sympathies for you. don't over exaggerate their pain or their joy. That's not useful. That you're actually taking it away from them and you're making it about you. And that's what I've noticed people do. They over exaggerate and then they make it about them, and then it becomes about them. If it's about you, it's okay, but go somewhere else and deal with it with another friend, not the person who's going through their pain. And give yourself the time that you need to grieve. Like, I got really, really quiet and I made my life smaller because I need the time to grieve. And grieving is painful. And for me, physically, it's exhausting. I feel tired more. So I'm resting more, giving myself more rest, definitely drinking more water, hydrating, and giving myself the gift of my tears. When we cry, it's a gift. Somebody said, when you cry, you're lifting something from you. And then balancing the feeling of, in my heart, I feel happy and I feel the love that I have for her and the love she had for me. But on a physical level, there's this void, this emptiness, this sadness for me. And I miss that. I held her most of the time and gave her kisses, and she was like so amazing to me. So yeah, so that's what's going on. And Angela, you want to chime in?
A little feedback I would add right here is, you sent a text to me just to let me know right away when this happened, and had some other things going on I was aware of. So to your point, I didn't want to impose myself, and I also, because it's delicate, I mean, I love you and Happy did touch my life too. So when we've talked about it on the phone, I wasn't looking into your eyes. Right now we're talking about it. I have the opportunity to do that. And so I'm realizing my heart's a little bit more ignited and my sadness is a little bit more up for how I will also miss Happy. but to your point, that's my experience and you have your experience, and we can share a heart together and we can share a kind of a grief, but we're both going through a different process with it. And just with the backgrounds and the education that we both do have, I wanted to be sure that I was allowing the experience to be your experience without putting too much on it. And so a good teaching point as far as your sharing here from your heart about loss and about grief, we know that it's something every single person who's alive is going to have at some point or another. A death touch their life, and that might be a source of grief. It might be just the loss or the death of a certain way of being, of a job, of a relationship. It can show up in a lot of different ways. But I think what's important, is there's so much in our videos we're teaching about practices and modalities, and it may not be necessarily a simple one, but the practice of just silence and what we called in our education heart-centered listening is so important. So, we will often put our hand on our heart to really center here and feel in. We might do that when we're ourselves going through something or experiencing empathy for another person. But the whole point in that is also to come into a kind of a stillness. You gave yourself time and space and stillness to have your own process. And the way that we can most honor each other is to ourselves know how to go into stillness and into quiet. Because so often when someone is having an experience, and I've lost people. It's so easy for my mind to travel to like, oh, my geriatric, fur babies too, like they're going to potentially, die in the next few years, 5 years, but like the mind wants like me to follow this track that makes the experience about number one, my experience, and number two, something that's still a fantasy because it's in the future. Wherever your mind and your emotions may go with a subject like this, to come into heart-centered listening, to not be thinking about your own process, how you're going to respond to the person that you care about, what you have to say to them, the way that you can show up with the most loving and what is my intention with you. And in this video where I know you really want to share your experience from a heart place because everyone can relate to it, it is to be in that quiet place with you, to be present with you, to really experience what it is that you're going through, and just to be here and hold the space and give you my love. And so, you know, that is a point that I want to share as far as heart-centered listening and being in the silence with somebody you care about is one of the most valuable tools there is, because the person that you are sitting with in that way is going to experience you as there for them. And one thing that you could do, and you know, in any situation like this, it might be around death or loss, it might be a different kind of grief. But instead of saying I'm sorry, or instead of you know, going into some big excitement that's your own emotion and your own story, how can I be here with you? What do you need? You know, and sometimes all that's needed is just for you to be present. Or maybe they do want to hear a certain word, or, you know, I care, but, you know, ask the person that you're with and that you're holding space for, and truly let it be about them, and just bring your heart to be present with whatever it is that they're experiencing. So that's all I would add right here.
Yeah, and reflecting, my cousin Manel, she was so present and silent. When we're silent around someone, we give them room to breathe. Like, she was silent, so she gave me room to breathe, and she gave me room to be authentic and honest. And she was comfortable with my grief in the way it showed up. Like, grief could seem crazy because I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that, I wish, and then I was crying about it. I'm like, should I have done more? Could I have done more? When we're grieving, we explore all the different aspects of what could have, what should have, and it looks manic and it looks crazy sometimes. And my mind went to, did I kill her by not taking her to the acupuncturist earlier? Or did I not do enough for her? You know, and I needed to explore all these things and cry while I was exploring them. And my cousin Manal did such an amazing, beautiful job. And she's not a coach. Like, you don't have to be trained in this. She was loving me, and she just listened. She kept silent. She kept her mouth shut, really. Just keep your mouth shut and let the person speak. And this was like the next day, she's like, it's okay. She just died yesterday. This is fresh. It's new. And then I'm like, okay. And the truth is, I trust the process. Like, we come back to balance. I came back to balance when I was allowed and given permission, was being heard and seen to express that what we would call crazy part of grieving, you know, and then feeling remorse, like, could I have done this? Could I have done that? And actually, no, I took her to the doctors. I did the best that I could. I was even willing to drive 8 hours to see this vet that I know, that I think highly of and respect. And the vet's like, no, you don't need to do that. There's plenty of good people in Los Angeles. You know, I was willing to go anywhere. And it was her time, and I trust the process, but I needed space, and I still need space. I find myself calling her name out loud. I hear myself calling her Happy, and I'm like, oh, Happy's not here. It's new. It's only been almost 2 weeks. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. So I might do that for a while, and it's okay. And it's not that I'm crazy or losing it. She was with me for 6 years. That's a lifetime. We were together almost every day, 95% of the time. So it's okay to accept where I'm at in my grief and the expression and what it looks like. And it's important to be silent with someone who's going through something. And grieving, as you said, Angela, it's not just about losing something or someone to death. It's also losing a job, losing a car, losing a house, losing a friend, not to death, but friendships end. Graduating, every time I've graduated, I would have post-graduation depression. What I didn't know back then is I needed to grieve. I needed to grieve the loss of showing up with 300 people every one weekend a month and seeing them and loving, and now they're not in my life anymore. That was like a huge, huge thing for me. Graduation, ending that cycle. Every time we complete a cycle, we need to grieve it, even if it's a good thing. Graduation is a good thing. It's a celebration. But also I needed to grieve the loss of being around 300 people one weekend a month. And all of us shared so intimately and authentically and vulnerably. We had a lot of laughs, a lot of cries together. So instead of grieving, I went into depression because I didn't know any better. With losing Happy, her body, I haven't lost her. She still is in my heart and my thoughts and my feelings. Physically, she's not with me. I'm like, okay, I'm going to grieve and not go into depression, not go into remorse and loss. And honoring, and also listening to myself, like allowing myself to go into those crazy spaces of my mind. Could I have done better? What should I have done more? That's okay. It's okay to go into those spaces, but don't live there. I don't invite, like a lot of people start blaming themselves and they live in that blame and shame and feeling bad about who they are, that they could have done more, they should have done more. I don't even invite you to do that. Go there, explore it, and come back to the loving. So I keep bringing myself back into loving myself, into connecting to my heart, connecting to my body, connecting to my spirit, my soul, allowing my feelings. And sometimes, as I said earlier, I feel peaceful around Happy's death because she was in pain. She was in a lot of physical pain. And it was really hard watching her suffer. And she died peacefully in my arms. I was holding her and loving her. And that's what when I tuned in with her, that's what she wanted. And she got what she wanted. Happy was a very, very willful dog. She did what she wanted. She was very stubborn. If she wanted something, she did it. If she didn't want something, she didn't do it. So she died the way she wanted, in my arms. Me holding her. I was holding her and saying, it's okay, Mama, I'm here for you. I love you. And then I keep bringing myself back to that. She had a good, loving life. I gave her the best six years of her life. She was very well loved, very well taken care of. She got the best of everything. I doted on her. She was the queen. Like, I used to have people yell at me and go, she's your dog. You're the master. I'm like, no, not really. And I'm okay with that. I'm like, no, she's not my master and I'm not her master. She's the queen. And that's all there is to it. And people go, but you're supposed to be her master. I'm like, no, that's not how it works for Happy. And I was okay with that. I love that she had her personality and she expressed herself. Like, she was so funny. We would go walking and people would stop to talk to her, and then me. And then when she was done, she would bark and be like, woof, woof, like, come on, let's go. And people look at her, why is she barking? I'm like, she's done. She wants to leave. She would move her head like, come on, let's go, let's go. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, she's a talker. She lets you know what she wants. So she was very intelligent, very amazing. So, and that's part of grieving, is remembering the joyful things. And then now I'm doing things for the first time without her. Like I went to Ross the other day and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to Ross for the first time without her. I'm getting in my car for the first time without her, going to the grocery, because she went with me really almost everywhere, 95% of the time. Maybe 2% actually. She didn't go with me to places, but now I'm doing this podcast without her. This is the first. So, and feeling that, and feeling like the sadness and the pain around that in my body. Yeah, and then allowing my body to process. I've been nauseous a lot. I've been having a stomach ache, been having headaches. And that's, to me, part of my body is also grieving her, grieving not having her around. Happy was an amazing, loving companion, and she wasn't demanding. She was very, very loving. So, so give yourself the gift of being present with your experience. And I don't like saying don't and should and shouldn't, but just for now, I don't know how else to frame it. Don't fantasize about what grieving should look like to you, because it's different. It's different for all of us, and it looks different. For some people, grieving is laughing. They just laugh because they're terrified. For some people, grieving is not crying at all. It's just being in shock for a long, long time. And that's okay too. Don't impose what you should be doing in your grief. Do what you do. And ask your loved ones to be a witness, to be in silence, to support you, to cook for you. Like, one of the things I appreciate about the Jewish religion is they do sitting in Shiva. And I love that ritual. I'm not Jewish and I'm spiritual, but it's the family just sits for a week doing nothing, and people come and they bring them food, and all they do is just cry. They don't take showers. I think they sit supposedly on the floor, and people gather and rally around them, and they just allow them to grieve. So allow yourself and ask for people to support you. And that's something that, when I was talking, the people who are capable, and that's where I'm saying show up in loving and set boundaries. Some people are not capable to be supportive. So to those people, I'm like, thank you, but I'm good. I had a friend who I was like, Happy died, and she just looked at me and drove off. Like, okay. She is not capable. So I call those people a dry well. So I don't go to drink water from a dry well because there's no water there. If someone is not capable of showing up for you and supporting you, don't go there. Go to people who are capable. And there's plenty of people, and people show up when we live. So I live mostly in the space of loving and trusting my life and my process. And what I needed showed up. When Happy was dying, a friend of mine who I haven't talked to in years and is a very busy person on the planet, she texted me. She's like, can you talk? I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I haven't talked to her in years. And we used to be best friends in college. And it's one of those friendships that there's no time and space. Whenever we connect, we're like right there with each other. So we don't need to talk. It's like every now and then is fine. And I was like, yeah, Happy's not doing well and she's dying. And I still wasn't aware that she was actually dying like that day, that like in few hours kind of thing. And she supported me because she's had pets. Happy is actually my first pet ever in my life. So I didn't know what to do. I knew how to love her and give her a good life. I didn't know what to do at the end of her life. And she's like, this is what you do. You have options. You do this, you do that. And I was like, oh, cool. We got off the phone. And then I got quiet and I was holding Happy, and Happy went away. And I texted her, I'm like, Happy just died. What do I do? And she told me I could do this and that. There's also options. And so people show up when we show up. I showed up for myself, and the person that I needed showed up for me, and trusting that. So usually our first reaction when something bad happens to us is we feel isolated and we feel alone. You're not alone. You're not isolated. At the end of 2007, I was in a bad car accident. And then my phone was dying and I didn't know who to call. And I went into, oh my God, I don't know what to do. This man came out of nowhere. He's like, I heard the accident. I'm here for you. I will stand here with you. And it was raining and it was cold. It was around, I think 7:00, but we were there till after midnight. And he showed up because I was so frazzled and out of it. I'm like, huh? And he helped me through the whole experience. And I think we were done by 1:00. It was a weird night. The cops didn't show up till midnight. And so trusting that when you love yourself and care for yourself, the support will show up, and all you have to do is say, yes, thank you. When this man came out of, and I've never seen him ever again. I don't even remember what he looks like. I don't remember his name. He just showed up to help me. He's like, I'm here for you. I'm going to help you through this. And he did. And when it was done, it was done. And I may never run into him again. I don't know. But my point is, be open to receiving love, to receiving support. Because most of us, when we get hurt, we tend to isolate. Don't isolate. There's love for you. The universe, what that means for me is the God of my understanding, my friends, my family, people that love me, will care about me, will show up. People that I don't know that love on a human level, on a spiritual level, they know universal love will show up for me and support me. And that is true for all of us. And this is where going quiet, like I got quiet and silent, and what I needed was coming and kept showing up for me. And it still is that way. So I decided to get Happy cremated. And then I just looked up cremation for pets, called this company, and they're like, yeah, we'll come, we'll pick her up, and then we'll drop off her ashes. It's like, okay. And it was simple. It was really simple. This man comes, and he was very kind, very loving, very gentle, a big, big, giant guy. Very gentle, very loving. He took Happy with respect, and then he brought her ashes yesterday. And it's like life can be that simple, because I choose to live my best life. I choose to live with ease and grace and in loving and light. So it's a choice, and it's a conscious choice, living in consciousness as I'm grieving Happy's loss, Happy's passing. And also being centered in the silence, in the expansion. I'm up-leveling my self-caring. As I mentioned, I'm resting more, I'm drinking more water, I'm going out for walks. I'm making myself walk 3 times a day because I need it. Sometimes I feel like I'm choking and I can't breathe. Like, okay, I need to go out and take a walk and breathe deeply. Taking deep breath is really helpful when we're grieving, because sometimes I cry so hard, I feel like I'm going to pass out. So slowing down and taking deep breaths and allowing, loving. Thank you, Angela. I'm noticing that you are being present with me and loving me. And that's the thing to do. Just be present with someone who's going through something, even if it's something joyful. Okay, Angela, take it away.
Well, it's been really beautiful for me just watching you go through the process. Not that it's an easy process or it's one that I wish you had to go through, but everything that we have learned and everything that we share with our clients, we always say, use it all for your learning, your growth, and your upliftment. And I've watched you do exactly that. And it can be hard at times because, you know, people will go through the different stages, the different 5 stages of grieving in different ways. And as you mentioned earlier, the time it takes may vary, and also things that we grieve, we may grieve for a lifetime. And some people may not know what they need, which is why if you can hold the space for a loved one and ask, or even just be silent and be with them, it makes such a big difference. But we've talked about self-care and being compassionate with yourself, whatever you're going through, in past videos. We've talked about boundaries in past videos. And I've just watched you in your own life practice, especially at this time, really implementing and expanding on what you know and what you need. And if you know somebody who's grieving and they don't know what they need, you can be a part of that discovery process just by being in silence and asking that question. Maybe somebody didn't think about it before, because some people's ways of dealing with grief is to keep busy and be distracted and not think about it. And I've done that before. No, I want to go to work. I want to clean the house. I want to do everything but the thing that makes me sit still and be quiet and think of that thing. And you know what, that's okay too. But it's not necessarily okay indefinitely if what one is doing is avoidance, because eventually you have to face everything. But life is a journey and life is a practice. And, you know, having what often in coaching we might call a dream team on your side, especially at times like this, really matters. So I'll just use the example that you shared, that you know who your friends are who might show up with excitement and making it about them. They weren't the ones that you necessarily called on, but they might be the ones that you call on in another situation where you want a cheerleader or somebody who's going to get really enthusiastic about something and share it and pass it on. At a time like this where you want to just go into a quiet space and give yourself a buffer zone for a while, that may not be the person. And some people will just show up out of the blue, the friend that you haven't talked to in forever. Sometimes there's just, because of the heart connection and ability to go into silence, a listening that happens that says, I don't know why I'm thinking of Hadia right now, but I'm going to make that call, you know, which I'm sure is what happened. So no matter what, like, we're always talking in our videos about how to love yourself and others more, how to take better care and support, going into the heart and listening and being compassionate. This is another way that shows up. And it's important to know, sometimes it might be just be, I don't even know if you say it anymore, let your fingers do the walking through the phone book, but maybe it's more you go online and you had to look up, you know, what do I do in this circumstance? Somebody suggested I have options, but I don't know anything about who does cremation. A way to go to your dream team might be that, you know, I mean, in this circumstance specifically, you know, people who have pets, perhaps who have been through a situation like this. Maybe they can give you that information if you don't know how to look it up yourself, or if you want it to come with a high referral. And you also know who can just sit in silence with you, who doesn't have to say the right thing or to try to fix it. So often out of loving, but maybe a misunderstanding that somebody feels like they have to do something for you, and their own discomfort and needing to fix or change or fill in a silent gap, they might try to rush to do that. And, you know, and often maybe that's the difference between men and women too. And, you know, Pax talks about this, how we can have better communication in the sense that, you know, a male will often want to fix something, want to show up and take the something away and fill it in with something else for us. Or often if we are going through just the rant and the rave of like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wanted it to be a certain way and it's not. Again, that question, you know, what do you need me to do right now? And packs, a man and a woman might say, because the responses are not always, but often different. I just want you to hold a bucket for me. And what that means is whatever I verbally need to purge or emotionally need to purge, just be there and hold the space so that I can empty. Because sometimes all we need to do is empty to find our own answer. And often by being quiet and listening, we allow that person to go to the next level of depth in their being. And it might be clearing out the, I wish I did this, or I wish I would have known that, and just come to the space where when that's gone, now I can sit, as you said earlier, in that space where I can remember what I love and the happy times with happy, or I can maybe sometimes even joke irreverently about something that happened, just because now I'm freed up and I'm okay to do that. But it's just such a valuable way that we can be together. And it's so important to have the discernment and use every opportunity to even understand yourself better. But again, to your point, is this grief, this loss, or even this celebration and this joy, it doesn't have to be exactly like any other time before. So know that in this moment and in this experience, new. It's the first time you are in the place, even if you've had a loss before, it's the first time where you've lost and are grieving happy. And you are also not the same person you were when you had a previous loss or an experience of grief. And neither am I in my own life as I experience loss and grief or celebration and joy. Every time is a new journey. Every time I might have a different way of showing up or a need for more space or less space. And if I'm looking to be cheered up and having space filled, I might call on my funny friend. If I want somebody who will be quiet and just let me cry tears without having to do anything or fix anything, it may be somebody else that I call, but be able to give yourself the space wherever you are at in your own process, to not have to do a past reference point or a future reference point, to even ask yourself, what does my heart need right now? You know, who do I want to surround me? And maybe it's nobody, maybe it's one or two specific people, or maybe maybe if you are not able to cook for yourself, or you don't have an appetite and you know you need to eat, maybe you know that somebody that makes that delicious thing that would be just the thing, you know. Call on that person and say, yeah, what I could really use right now is a meal, or, you know, if it's me, your special healthy treat. But just go inside and know what your answer is this time. And then next time it may look like something else, or it may look like different company.
Yeah, and it's the value of grieving is that you don't get stuck. The times when I was younger, I didn't allow myself to grieve. And what that meant is it got me to make wrong choices, decisions for my life that were painful. And they could have been avoided if I grieved the loss of whatever was going on. When we don't grieve, we get stuck. And then we're not functioning fully because we're stuck. And then we start making wrong choices for our lives. Like when people go through a breakup, when they don't grieve that breakup, most people, this is what people call the next relationship on the rebound relationship. The reason you're having a rebound relationship or the rebound job or the rebound home, because you haven't grieved the loss of that relationship that you needed to grieve. There's no reason for rebound relationships. This is why some people advise me, oh, you should get another dog. I'm like, no, I'm not ready. I do not want to get a rebound dog. That makes no sense because that dog is not going to be right for me and I'm not going to be right for it. Grieving is valuable and important because it opens your heart up and you're clearing the pain, and then you're applying loving. And when you feel fully loving for yourself, then you can start moving forward in your life, living your best life and making loving, honoring choices for yourself. Otherwise, you're avoiding the grieving and you are making choices that are not self-honoring. They're in avoidance. And when we make choices from avoidance, we're making choices that are going to end up hurting us. The rebound relationship is usually very toxic. That's been my experience. And the beautiful thing is, I have my team. I've got my life coach, I've got my co-counselors. So I reached out to my life coach, Christina, and she was available. And I was like, thank you for being available. And I just cried and cried. And I've been working with Christina since 2003. And I was like, Happy died. And she knows, I've been working with her. She's been there. She knows that Happy's been dying. And she was I'm like, thank you for being available. When we build our team of people, they will my people rallied around me to support me through this very painful time in my life right now. So I feel held, I feel loved, I feel connected, I feel nurtured. Years ago, one of our friends from USM, the University of Santa Monica, that's the school that Angela, we went to. It's a graduate program for spiritual counseling. Beth, she had her only daughter. She was 19 and she died. She was crossing the street and some guy hit her. It was a hit and run. Her only child, and I went to the funeral, and then somebody sent out and said, what do you need? And I wrote our whole community saying, don't ask her what she needs. When we are grieving, we don't know what we need. Send flowers, send sympathy cards, send money, send food, send a housekeeper. If you're gonna just do something for the person. Go to her house, show up and sit with her and be in the silence. Just show up. It is so challenging for me when people ask me, what do you need? When I'm in emotional, mental, physical pain and what it looks like I'm in trouble, I don't know what I need. I really don't. It was so useful when my friend was like, okay, this is what you do. She took over. She didn't say this is what you need or what do you need. Just take over. I came home, my mom made me food. It's really important to just show up in the capacity that you're capable of showing up with. If you're not capable to show up for someone who's going through something painful and challenging, don't show up. And if you're going through grieving, show up for yourself and say no to the things that don't work for you. When somebody says, what do you need? You don't know what you need. Just say, I don't know. And just say, put on some music. Like part of my grieving was to sit with a good friend and watch something on Netflix. Like I needed to numb out. Part of it, sometimes I just need to numb out, and sometimes I need to cry, and sometimes I need to laugh, and sometimes I need to go for a walk, and sometimes I need to sleep in. I've been waking up early, like around 1:30, and I can't sleep thinking about Happy. And that's part of the grieving process, and it's okay. So I start sleeping around 8 in the morning. Some days I can do it, some days I can't, because I have work and I have my clients, and I show up for my clients in my heart, in my loving and present, living my best life. So it's balancing. It's a balancing act between living in joy, living in my best life, and between grieving and receiving love, receiving support, and reaching out to the people that I know that can support me. And then asking, can you make me food? I love that you said that, going to the friend who cooks the best, nurturing, healthy food. And then knowing grieving is different for different things. Like when something, I'm going to repeat, because a lot of us don't give ourselves the space to grieve when something is complete. Even if it's a good thing, even if you move from an apartment to a bigger apartment, moving from one job to another job, even if it's a good thing, you need to grieve the loss of that thing that you moved on from, so you can release what is no longer working for you and expand into receiving more joy, more love, more kindness, more fun, more sweetness, more compassion, expanding for yourself, being tender and compassionate for yourself as you move through life. Life's challenging. Life challenges, ebb and flows. Having a disappointing relationship. And that's something I see all the time. People don't grieve the loss of relationships. They just keep moving on, or they shut down and they decide not to date for a few years. So expanding into loving yourself.
I think it's really beautiful what you said earlier too, about as you're going through this process, that there's something that has been surrendered. And in a sense, there's a space we can say, whether it's the pilot seat in the car, or wherever happy would normally be with you in a day. There's the physical space and loss, but there's the internal space too. And you mentioned that at the same time that something has been let go of, it opens up that loss, a greater spaciousness inside. And that is the place, I think, so often when we feel empty and we're missing something or someone, or even a way we used to be, maybe, like we even can grieve our youth when we get to a certain age. Like, I'm never going to be that young girl anymore. But there's something that opens up when we come into acceptance. And by acceptance, I mean the pain that we feel about it, the knowingness that it will never be the same again, the joy about it, the things that we can laugh about, whatever it is. It's just being with whatever shows up in a way that we can keep coming back to the loving center. And that space then that is created when we're not necessarily continuously trying to fill it, we might completely find medicine or in Netflix or in our friends' great cooking. But the opportunity to know and love and support ourselves, and to better know and understand and love and support ourselves through whatever we're going through, also comes with the recognition that, if we have a tendency to numb in a particular way, that we can enjoy movies and enjoy the food, but if we are trying to fill every moment and every space with that something else, also just paying attention to where that line is, because it's about all things in balance, and it is about self-care. But when we know how to keep arriving back to that center, it is in that spaciousness, not trying to run out and create a replacement. Even if you got a new dog next week, there's only one Happy in this world. Nobody will be like Happy. And in human relationship replacements, it's the same. Every relationship has its own different qualities and currencies in the exchange. So nothing's ever going to look identical, but in spaciousness that we allow and can sit and be with, especially when we fill it up with the joy of the experience, even when we reflect on the sorrow. I'm so grateful that I can actually experience that loss, because it's equal to the joy and the fullness that I felt in that relationship, with that beloved pet, with whatever the job that I had, but now is a new time. So really that spaciousness when we're in our heart is filled with all the possibilities of what may be next. And when we can find that fullness in that moment with ourselves, with the dream team, the loved ones that we call around us, it just really, it is the creative magnetism from the heart space that we can continue to bring more fullness in, but we're also okay in the space without, until the time just feels right. We don't have to push. We don't have to make anything happen. We don't have to try to fill what is currently feeling empty. It's being in a co-creative space.
Yeah, it is. And that sweetness and that tenderness, and allowing your expression, whatever the grieving looks like for you, and being in acceptance and having compassion. I have compassion for myself and what I'm going through, and releasing happy. And also what I did, I mean, I feel this is a weird thing. Like, I feel lucky that I knew she was dying. I've been saying Happy is dying for a few months now. And I was grieving losing her while she was here. I was crying that she was sick. I was crying knowing that she's going to die. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And my mind still tells me, I wish I knew that the day, Wednesday, June 9th, I wish I knew that day she was dying, because I would have just stood still and held her and stayed home instead of going and doing things with her, because I usually take her with me where I go, and being in acceptance with that. Because the one thing that all of us know, that when we're born, when anything and everything is born, it's going to die. That's the one thing that we all know. The thing that we don't know is what happens between birth and death. And that is a choice. How I choose to experience my life between my birth and my death is up to me, or I turn it over to other people. When I was young, I didn't know that I get to choose. It was like, oh, I thought that just I was influenced by everyone, but it's not true. I get to choose. I get to choose to be depressed or not depressed. I get to choose to be happy or not happy. I get to choose to give myself the gift of grieving so I can keep expanding into the loving. I get to choose to give myself the gift of living my best life in honoring my father's passing, in honoring Happy's death, in honoring life. Life is for the living. Like, I remember a friend of mine, I think it was a week later, it was her birthday, and I called her and I was like, it's your birthday, what do you want to do? She's like, but Happy just died. And I'm like, yes, she did, and I'm sad, and life is for the living, and you're living, and I want to honor your birthday and celebrate you, showing up for life, because my death is going to come sooner or later. I don't know when. and I'm not gonna die while I'm alive. I'm gonna claim life and honor life. There was a few years back, my aunt passed away. So I went to her funeral in the afternoon, and in the evening, one of my good friend's daughter graduated from high school. So I went to her graduation party, and I'm like, life is so surreal. Like, at 2 o'clock, I was at a funeral. And then at 7 o'clock, I was celebrating someone's graduation in the same day. And somebody's like, wow, how do you do that? I'm like, life is for the living. You honor both. I honored my aunt's passing, and I'm honoring this young woman's celebration of life, of graduation. That's very important, actually.
And then there's space enough inside of you to be present with all of that, which was authentic for you. And we can all do that. And that's, I think that's why we want to make the point too, like, don't get so stuck in, one thought, one feeling. They can be very real and true for you, but you don't have to lasso onto it and attach to it so that, like, you must also feel bad in the next moment. Because in a day, we can go through so many authentic expressions and experiences, and there's many highs and lows, and we are, those whatever 33 million flavors, and they're all who we are.
It is so true. And that day, we were open. It wasn't during the pandemic. When my aunt passed, I had to drive from LA to Orange County, pick up another aunt, and drive all the way down to San Diego, and then drive back to Orange County and back to LA. So it was a busy day of driving as well, and showing up for the living. I go to funerals not because my aunt died. I miss her and I love her and I have great memories, but I showed up for my cousins, for her children. Like, you show up for the living, show up for life. Don't show up for the dead, because they're dead. And I have this pet peeve that I've talked to you about many, many times. Like, don't show up for my funeral. If you're going to send me flowers, send them while I'm living so I can enjoy them now. Because when I'm dead, I don't really know what happens when I die. I don't know if I go to heaven, to hell, to back into the spirit. I don't know. I have ideas, but I can't confirm. If you're going to take me out, don't come take me out when don't go, oh, it's too late. No, call me, text me, send me flowers, dinners, whatever. Don't send me alcohol, because I don't drink or chocolate. So my point is, show up while the person is alive. That's what's important. I really get so upset when people show up for people's funeral. I'm like, there's 50 people here. Who are all these people? Where were they? Did they even pick up the phone to say hello to this person that died? So show up for life, for the loved ones, for their life, and show up for your life. And live your best life. I will keep saying this over and over and over again. Live your best life. And that means differently to different people. And do not compare yourself to other people. You're not Elon Musk. You're not, I don't know who is the latest and the greatest right now. You're not those people. You're not Drake. You're not, I don't know who. That's who they are. Live your best life. And show up for yourself. If you want flowers, buy yourself flowers. If you want to have a nice fancy sushi dinner, you take yourself out to a nice fancy sushi dinner. Because life is short. It really is. And for all of us, I know some people are living till they're 90 and 100 now, but the quality of life as we get older gets less and less and less, because we have less and less energy. Happy's quality of life got less and less and less. She stopped wanting to walk. So I used to carry her, put her down so she can do her business, and then pick her up and put her in her bag. So enjoy the quality of life while you still have energy to do it. And yes, grieve and live your best life. And allow
living. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Please.
Oh, I was just going to say, and while you're living your best life and being the star in your own life, whatever it means and looks like to you, know who those people are that you want around you, because that is also your quality of life. That is also your upliftment. And, you know, you might as well have a great cast of stars in your life. And even if it's different, depending on the time, just know who the people are for when and what occasions.
Exactly. And then the grieving looks different. Like grieve the different aspects of the loss. Like one of the aspects of grieving for me is I thought actually Happy was going to live for at least 6 more months to a year. I really thought that. So I had these plans for Happy and I. We were going to go to Arizona on vacation. We were going to go up to Oakland by San Francisco on vacation. We were going to come see you, Angela. So we had I had 3 trips planned for Happy and I. I need to grieve that, the loss of the fantasy, the loss of the plans, the loss of the dream. You know, a lot of people forget to grieve the loss of the dream. When there's a breakup, when you break up with a person, there's this fantasy, there's this dream that you built around that person. You got to grieve that loss because it's not going to happen with that person. And if you don't grieve that loss, it will not happen with anyone else. It's really important to grieve the different aspects of death. And death doesn't mean just somebody dying. Death of a job, loss of a house, loss of a car. Like my first car, Datsun B210, it was beat up and it was rusty. And I still love that car. And I find myself still thinking about it and grieving the loss of that car. Even though it was a piece of junk, it really was. But I don't care. It was my first car and I loved it, you know? And I needed to grieve that car so I can get a better car, and it always gets better and better. But you got to grieve the loss of the dream, and then you got to grieve the good times, and then the bad times, the challenging times. The challenging times with Happy was watching her suffer, watching her be in pain. You know, it was very painful for me to see Happy not feel well. And then all the joy she brought into my heart and my life. She was so funny. Happy used to make me laugh all the time. Like I'd be laughing. People were like, what are you laughing at? I'm like, Happy just makes me happy. Makes me laugh. She had all these little character things that she would do and jump around. And she just made me laugh all the time. So I got to grieve that, because that's not going to happen. And it's happening in my imagination, but not in physical reality, not in physical form. So looking at the different aspects of grieving, the person, the job, the graduation, you know, moving on from school to being employed, to being an adult, you know, grieving the loss of your innocence. A lot of us get violated as children and we lose our innocence. It's important to grieve the loss of our innocence, because that's a huge violation. And you got to do the grieving, because the grieving opens you up, opens your heart. It's an invitation to live life authentically and be vulnerable. And that's when you're living your best life. But you got to do the grieving. So grieving opens you up. Depression shuts you down, and you freeze in time, and you keep experiencing the loss and the pain, and there's no end in sight. Grieving has an end in sight. It just keeps transforming you and opening you up. And then it's up to you. It's your choice to release the pain and implant loving and compassion and tenderness and sweetness. And all of us, I believe, and I could be wrong, all of us have a lot to grieve. All of us have been hurt somehow by somebody, by something. And not because people intentionally some people intentionally wanted to hurt us, but most people were mindless. We don't notice. We just go on bumping into each other and hurting each other without even noticing. And this is what I've learned with Happy's loss. I need to stop and slow down so I can be more mindful, expand my mindfulness, expand my noticing, have more awareness, more consciousness, expand my loving, receptive vulnerability, authenticity, and connection and experiences with myself and everything and everyone, people, places, and things. And that's by being silent, having a conscious, loving, mindful living from my heart. And that's what I invite you to do. Have conscious awareness, have compassion, and like sit down and write all the violations you've been through in your life and take one at a time. Just grieve one upset, one hurt at a time. Free yourself from the pain. You don't need it. You don't deserve it. It doesn't belong to you. It's just an experience you've had, and let it go. All of us deserve to be happy. I love that I called happy. Like I say her name all the time. I'm like, oh, this is so great. An affirmation, because I hear myself calling her happy, and I'm like, I'm so glad her name wasn't Sally or Sheila or whatever. Her name is Happy.
And that's what she exuded.
It's true. It's like, what an affirmation. So,
and and I think even just this last year or so is such a great collective example of what you might call loss or grief, because pretty much worldwide, people lost the opportunity to get together in ways that they used to. They were in a kind of a forced isolation. The way that we have done work for many people, if they're going to a workplace, looks different. For some people whose maybe identity was wrapped up in, going out and being public, and especially like artists and musicians who are used to performing live. I mean, there's different things it looked like for so many different people, but as a collective, humanity has experienced a kind of loss and a kind of grieving process for how things used to be, how they used to be, that they are no longer. And even as we're seeing perhaps a return to something more like what we knew before, we'll never be the exact same people. We're not going back to the exact same circumstance, but as you were talking about making the list, we can look back to this year and at the same time know there were things that we might grieve. There are things that we might hope that we never go through again. But at the same time, those are the exact things that perhaps create a spaciousness where now we can say, oh, I have so much appreciation for the times where gatherings were possible, for the times where, I could just invite somebody over without thinking about it. There's also the stillness and the quiet and the lessons that came with that, if you're willing to dive into that and be comfortable with that change, that people often did find that they could live in a way that they didn't know how to before. If it was how they did work, they became more innovative. It's how they did their personal life. There was an opportunity to have more intimacy, with the partner, the children, the pets, whatever it might be at home, that perhaps, before they didn't get to spend as much time with. So there's the, what's difficult and what is character building and what is heart opening in every circumstance. But this year is just another, or this past year is just another one of those opportunities where we let go of some things and we gained some things, and this is going to be the constant in life. It's going to look a little bit different and sometimes the same over and over again. So continue allowing yourself in your heart to be right where you are, and just experience your heart with what is showing up again and again, and having the practice be to come back to the center in the stillness of your heart for yourself and for others, no matter what.
And I want to point out intimacy. So most people think of intimacy as sex, and Angela and I do not ascribe to that languaging. Intimacy we refer to as being authentic, being vulnerable, seeing yourself, hearing yourself, and seeing other people and hearing them, being present. Into me, see, I invite you, and into you, I would like to be invited to see. So that's the intimacy we refer to. Intimacy is really authentic presentness, connection. It's not sex. Sex is sex. Intimacy is connection, it's presentness, it's being alive, it's been thriving and flourishing in your life. And then as you write the list, I invite you to take one, don't tackle all of your life's grievances, just one thing at a time. And then you mentioned the pandemic, we're opening it up. Also grieve the loss of the pandemic. And some of you are like, what? We're just waiting to be over it. Yes, I understand. But also the pandemic was a huge, huge deal. And we need to grieve what it did to us collectively and personally. And then look at the gifts that it gave us. For me, the pandemic gave me a lot of gifts. Yes, there were losses. And also there was a lot of connecting through Zoom. Angela doesn't live in Los Angeles, and I've been wanting to do podcasts with her. And before the pandemic, I thought we could only do it in person. I'm like, I'm not driving 24 hours to do a podcast and come back to Los Angeles. I used to think, how am I going to make this happen? And now, because of the pandemic with Zoom, it's easy. We just do it, and it's effortless. And I've met it. Like the pandemic has enriched my life and opened and expanded my life in so many different ways. It's been amazing. And it also supported me to expand my spiritual life and quietness and get healthier and make better choices as well. So notice what you need to release from the form of grieving, what you need to grieve, what you have not grieved, what losses you need to let go of, that are no longer serving you, that are getting in the way. And one of the ways to do grieving is crying. We have our tears. Our tears is a gift. I'm not a public crier. I just don't do that. If I cry in public, that means I'm just like at the end of whatever. I'm a private crier. I cry privately. That's what works for me. So if you're a private crier, then be with that and turn on beautiful music. Do a ritual around it. Bring some candles, some incense, some soothing music, and cry, and get a teddy bear or a nice stuffed animal and hold it and cry, and create sweetness around your grieving. If you are a crier and you need to be held, then ask for that. Reach out to a friend, to a family member, and just say, I need to grieve. Can I come over and can you hold me while I'm grieving? And set boundaries around it. Ask for what you need and create that for yourself. And there's also a tool called freeform writing. Freeform writing is really powerful. And this is the guideline for freeform writing. I suggest bringing lined paper because you want to end up shredding it or burning it safely. So bring lined paper, and they're cheap. You can get like a bunch of it for 99 cents almost anywhere, at Staples or wherever. And then bring something to write with, pencil, pen, crayons, it doesn't matter, and start writing. So 20 minutes minimum, 2 hours maximum, no less than 20 minutes and no more than 2 hours. And you write grieving, and you write one of the things on your list that you want to release. I'm releasing this being shamed as a child, for instance. A lot of children get shamed for being playful, for being fun, for being joyous, for laughing out loud. And parents don't know. They tell their kids to be quiet, or for singing, or for just being loud. They tell their child to be quiet, and then that shames the child. So one of the things many of us need to grieve is being shamed as children. So you write that on top of the paper and you start writing. And part of it will come up to, why am I doing this? Write that down. Whatever your thoughts are, this is boring, this is not doing anything, keep writing whatever comes up. This makes no sense. Usually around 17 minutes, that's when you start going deep, you get into your authenticity. Because the first 17 minutes, you're in resistance. We resist releasing our pain, our hurt. And that's what we need to do, because that's what will bring you to life. So you do that for at least 20 minutes. I recommend 2 hours. And then when you're done, you take those papers, do not reread, because you do not want to replant anything. You want to release. You shred it or you burn it safely. If you do choose to burn your papers, please burn them safely, or shredding them is just fine. So it's releasing. And then go take a bath. Go take a shower. If you have a good heartfelt, like when Happy died, I cried from the bottom of my soul, from my gut. Like I was just wailing and I didn't know where it came from. And then you go take a shower, you drink a lot of water, you nurture yourself. And then invoke, if you can't cry, watch something that brings you tears, listen to sad songs. I invite you to invoke your tears. It's okay. Use the tools of song, of poetry, of movies, of shows. Listen to a sad talk. It's okay to use tools to help you cry and release. Crying is healing. Every time we cry, something is being lifted from us. Grieving is really valuable and really important, because you got to let go, let go, let go, let go, so you can create space to live in your courage, in your nature. Your nature is loving, it's brilliant, it's creative, it's amazing, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. It's dancing, it's laughing, it's connecting, it's being with yourself authentically, vulnerably, and connecting to other people and having as many life experiences as you can. You got to experience life, but when you're depressed or anxious, you're not present, you're not experiencing. Depression is coming from a place of things you need to grieve. And so is anxiety. They're both loss, losing the past and losing the future. Get centered in the now. Clear yourself through grieving. Grieving is loving. It's a gift you give yourself. And be intimate with yourself. Intimacy. See yourself, hear yourself, connect with yourself. I invite you to have the best loving relationship with yourself, and keep expanding, keep learning, and do it into action steps. How you doing, Miss Angela?
I'm good. I'm thinking about also knowing you can ask your heart if you're writing things down, but asking even the question, what's possible on the other side of the grief, or if you're maybe in the stage where you're experiencing anger. A lot of people have a hard time feeling grief, so they feel anger instead. and a lot of people will kind of keep that emotional lid on it, while the anger is bubbling up underneath, and they never know how to get past that. So know if you're even in that first stage of anger, that's part of maybe kind of like the bargaining or the disbelief. Know that it's just when you start going into the heart, like the anger is going to start looking like sadness. But what is on the other side of that? There's more that's possible. And so again, the reference point of the spaciousness, the stories that you told, that even while you're sitting, in sadness, like you can remember little things Happy did bouncing around, and it still brings joy to you. So, we have different ideas, most likely, about, do we believe in doggy heaven, people heaven, whatever our personal stories might be. But one thing that we all know for sure is that also what we keep with us is our own choice. Just because we have the sadness, just because we have the anger, whatever, even if in this moment I just want to numb a little bit, the joy I knew, the companionship I experienced, all of those things can never be taken from me unless my focus is so narrow on the hurt that I can't remember and be in the joy and the experience and the fullness of the rest. So, you know, it really is a choice how we feel. And sometimes we might need to sit with our sadness for a week or off and on for many years. But just know we can always breathe and go into the heart and keep coming back to the center or to the happy place, or the happy memory, whatever it might be. Just allow yourself all those expressions. And, you know, if you're not a, I don't know, if you're somebody who doesn't like to write a lot, you know, maybe some other things will work for you. You mentioned, you know, the Jewish tradition of families coming together. A lot of people also from different cultures and traditions will create an altar. You know, they have an ancestral altar if it's somebody in your family. But it can be a friend, it could be a loved pet. You know, it could be like that picture of you receiving the award, or, you know, you got the prize, or, you know, the bonus or whatever at your job, whatever it is, like have that special place. Perhaps even it's just visual to go to and to reflect on, so that, you know, that experience or that loved one continues to still feel, or excuse me, fill a material space, so you can still feel the memories and the joys that are associated as well.
Yeah. And also what I found was important for me is to let people know, like I said, I put out on Facebook, I texted people that are close to me. I just keep getting to be in the stillness, because a lot of times we avoid painful situations and we want to run away from them, especially from childhood, and we go into feeling like we were victimized, and to release that irrational thinking. None of us are victims. All of us are victors of our lives when we choose it. A victor of life is something is happening for you, not to you. When we think this happened to me and I had no control over it, it's victim consciousness. It's shifting into victor consciousness of it happened for me, for my learning, growth, and upliftment, for my clearing, cleansing, releasing, and releasing the irrational thoughts and limiting beliefs. We limit ourselves. I was working with someone recently and I'm encouraging this person to go out and date, and they're like, well, I get attached. And I said, that's a limiting belief. Go out and meet people to have experiences, to have joy, to have fun. You know, telling yourself I get attached is a limiting thought. It's a limiting belief. Be attached to yourself and your life and what you need, what you want. And stop people pleasing. A lot of us don't grieve because we don't want to upset anybody else around us. We don't want to inflict pain on other people. That's people pleasing. Stop people pleasing. There's so much to grieve about in your life. Take the opportunity. So in wrap up, what would you like to say in wrapping, beautiful Angela?
Just that allow yourself to be with whatever is. And like the example that you just shared, perhaps in the past, somebody did have a tendency for attachment. Perhaps in the past, somebody did have a tendency to grab onto sadness and not know how to release it and go into a depression. But what we're talking about time and time again is presence. and coming back to the heart and self-care. And the past never has to predict the now, never has to predict the future. So even having the awareness of, in the past, this is where I got tripped up, or this is what happened, that actually gives you an advantage to know, like this time now, just notice that and know that you can do it differently. Know that you can call the loving back. Know that you can feel the sadness or the attachment in one moment. And then the next moment, create a new, maybe it's a mantra or an affirmation, about like, I am free in this moment to choose, the fullness, the independence, the joy, and every other feeling that my heart allows. Or whatever, whatever might work for you. But just continue to come into each moment, allowing yourself to surprise yourself, not knowing how you're going to feel, not knowing how you're going to show up. And in every next moment, just let it be another equally valid expression.
Yeah. And I invite you.
Life is full. Life is full of many feelings and many experiences. And you made the point, when you're alive, be alive. Choose fullness. Choose life. Feel whatever is happening, but don't get stuck in any one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are every possibility, and life is so beautiful. And we don't know loss unless we have experienced gain, and so the wheel goes.
Yeah. So I invite you to start loving yourself, falling in love with yourself. I work with a lot of people who hate themselves and don't like themselves, and they don't like themselves when they were young, when they were a little child. That's the work you need to do. Grieving that self-hate, love who you were and who you are. Extend loving and joy, and be your own best leadership, your own best mother and father and friend, your own best ally. Fall in love with who you are. You are worth loving. You are, and grieve the loss of what you didn't have and what you wanted. And with that, I love you. Love is given. Love is given. All of us are born loving, beautiful, zestful, amazing, kind, compassionate, sweet, brilliant, smart, joyful, free, and we forget. We forget because we get hurt, and we hurt ourselves, and we hurt each other. Stop hurting yourself. And I have a theory: when every single person, when all of us, every single person on this planet, when you completely love yourself, love who you are, love your body, your mind, your emotion, your spirit, your soul, your soul's journey, your expression, your experiences, we will heal the planet. So please, please, please love yourself and use the tools and gather more tools and build your village. Have your coaches, have your counselors, have the people that you need around you. One of the things that I did, I talked to intuitive animal communicators to communicate with me and Happy, and it really helped me. I needed that support. Even though I'm intuitive and Happy and I were in tune to each other, I needed that extra support. So I called on the healers, the animal healers, communicators. So ask and go after what you need and get support and love yourself. I love you. Angela loves you. I invite you to go to hadialoving.com, sign up for your sessions and work with me. Give yourself the gift of coaching. And if you want to work with Angela, reach out to me and I will pass on your information. We love you, and have a good night or a good day or good afternoon. Just have a good life. Choose life, choose living, choose loving, choose compassion, choose joy and happiness. And honoring Happy's, my dog's death, I invite you to live your best life. I'm going to keep choosing to live my best life in honoring her, in loving her. I love you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.